Imagine it's the year 1589, and you're standing at the bottom of the Leaning Tower of Pisa. You're staring up, looking at Galileo, who's about to drop a small steel ball and a large steel ball. The people at the bottom with you are confused. They don't understand why Galileo's doing this. Any smart person knows that the larger ball is going to hit the ground first. This has been knowledge for the last 2,000 years. It's common sense. It's logical. It's what Aristotle taught. In that one experiment, 2,000 years of certainty completely vanished. But the real story is not about weights. It's about why we were wrong for such a long time, and why the scientific method that you learn in school is sort of preventing you from seeing the world for what it is. To understand why we were wrong for 2,000 years, you need to understand Aristotle. He was a genius, but he had a major flaw. He believed that the mind was more powerful than nature itself. He believed in deductive reasoning. He thought that if you started with a true statement, such as bigger objects have more earth in them, and thus longed to be back with the earth. That's why they fell faster. So if you began with something like that, then you could reason or use logic to arrive at the truth. This was comfortable. It felt like science, but it really was a trap. Aristotle never felt the need to actually drop the weights. The logic that he had paved forth already told you what the answer was. So why test it? This is the first lesson of the scientific mind. Logic is it's an amazing tool, but it's not everything. If your beautiful theory disagrees with only one piece of data, with one experiment, then the entire theory is either wrong or it needs to be modified. If you think back to your science fair experiments and the posters that you had to make, you might recall that you needed to fill out the board with all of the steps of the scientific method, whichever version you were taught. There are some simpler ones, there are some more elaborate ones, but they usually begin with observation, hypothesis, some research, maybe some methodology, experiments, results, a conclusion, all these sorts of steps. It sounds so clean, but it's so far from reality. Let's talk about how some of the miracles of the modern world actually got here. Let's talk about Alexander Fleming in 1928. Alexander Fleming was not following this step-by-step method. He was actually a little bit messy. He went on vacation, he had left a window open, and when he came back, he found that his bacteria culture was ruined by mold. If he would have followed the specific order of the scientific method, he would have saw his failed experiment, thrown it away, and retried it. But rather, he questioned. He stopped doing science and started noticing patterns. He had noticed that the bacteria around the mold was dead. Alexander didn't start with a question. Everything began with an accident. So doing science is a lot less like following a recipe, and it's a lot more like being a detective at a crime scene, looking for clues, observing patterns that are surprising. This brings us to a man named Karl Popper, who asked a very important question. He asked, what makes an idea scientific? Is it because it's true? Well, lots of true things are not scientific. Is it because it's proven? Still no, because you can never prove something with absolute certainty. Popper had argued that for something to be scientific, it must have a very important quality to it. It also must be falsifiable, meaning it must be able to be proven wrong. As an example, if I tell you that everything happens because of invisible space pixies, you can't prove me wrong. If you try to do an experiment and it fails, I'll just say, oh, the space pixies are tired. That's why your experiment failed. That is a protected idea. Scientific ideas allow for things to test them to be wrong. That's how we progress forward. We begin with an idea. We do experiments to find their weaknesses, and we slowly improve and build on the base idea until we get an idea that best matches reality. When we're doing science, we put our ideas out there and we say, this is how you destroy my idea. This is the weakness of my idea. Someone please test it, or someone continue to look into this. Even Einstein did this. He said, if the starlight does not bend during the solar eclipse, then my theory is wrong. He gave the world the tool to finally prove himself wrong. They tried and they didn't. That's what makes it science. So why does this matter to you? The reason is that we are all Aristotles. We all have this tower, big, beautiful tower of ideas about our politics, about our relationships, about our careers, how we're all so right, but every single one of us cannot be correct. So we have these beautiful ideas in our minds, but the problem is that we spend our entire lives focusing and looking for things that agree with us and disregarding things that disagree with us. We only look at the weights that fall the way that we expect them to. We can all live our lives with a certain scientific attitude. Not everyone needs to be a scientist, but you can have the attitude of a scientist. And it sort of looks like this. It looks like a person asking themselves, what would it take for me to be wrong about this? It's about having the humility to realize that the universe is much stranger than your logic will allow it to be. So science is not a step-by-step process in a flowchart that maybe you learned in science class. It's better described as a rebellion against your ego in the constant pursuit of truth. Science is messy, science is full of accidents, and science requires you to be your own harshest critic. But it is the best and the only way that we have found to actually move and proceed forward. So the next time that you're absolutely certain about something, think about what Galileo did, questioning the great Aristotle, and go find a way to prove yourself wrong. Consider subscribing if you are not currently subscribed, and I will see you in the next video.